from the valley of the jolly, ho, 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 green giant. Good things from the garden, garden in the valley of the jolly green giant. Summer green, snapped and fresh, kitchen sliced to taste their best. Tender beans are coming from the valley.
We know that the ginger gene originated with Neanderthal.
So with us here in our end of the year special, our very first guest ever in Grimerica, Efrain Palermo, who just published his first novel, Elliot and Cartel, just a week or two ago?
Yeah, it just came out about a week and a half ago. It's been out for a little while as a Kindle ebook version, but it's available now as a paperback.
That's great news. Are you there, Graham?
I'm here, man. Yep.
Yeah, Graham, I've only had a chance to read the first 2 chapters, I must admit. But Graham, you finished it up already, I think.
Yeah, man, it was really good. I liked it, Efrain, because especially I'm interested in all these different things. So you really kind of incorporated a lot of different interesting bits in it. Like I was thinking, it's almost like Jason Bourne in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he meets Blow and the Godfather with like a twist of ancient aliens and shamanism in there. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's all the stuff that we're interested in. And in my science fiction story, I try to put in elements that we're familiar with.
Yeah, and it seemed like you did the research because you had to have a lot of. It sounded like you had a lot of little factual things right in there too when you could, you know. Yeah,
the whole idea was to immerse the reader into the story. You know, just put in as many real facts as I can, just to make it more real. For example, like the way my first idea for the story came about when I was watching a show on National Geographic about cocaine submarines. And there were these 2 DEA agents that were following the trail of this cocaine submarine through the jungles of Colombia. And so, I had a what-if moment. I said, what if a UFO crash landed in the jungles of Colombia? And from there, this whole idea just came to me, just coalesced like bam. I mean, I had the whole idea, like the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story just came to me right there at that moment. Yeah, it's kind of a different scenario than a UFO crashing on Roswell or landing on the White House lawn or crashing in front of an Air Force base. And so this is a different scenario. Like, what if it landed and got into the hands of a drug cartel? And so this whole image, this whole picture just came to me. And once I had the idea, I sat down, I wrote out the whole story. It took me like about 6 weeks to write it out. And then I was just showing it to friends and say, it's kind of writing this science fiction story, check it out. And most of the people that my friends, they don't read science fiction. They say, okay, whatever, we'll check it out, we'll read it. And then once they read it, they were going, wow, this is actually pretty good. I didn't think science fiction was like that. But also they were going, what about this character? What happened here? So just by the questions, the story just evolved and got bigger and bigger. Yeah, then some of the comments were like, well, the characters seem real. Like they got really immersed into the story. And so it just grew, the story grew from there.
Yeah, it was great. And so far the response has been pretty good?
No, yeah, it's going pretty well. People who like science fiction like the story. People who don't like science fiction like it. So I think it's doing pretty good. Yeah, I get more into spiritual things as well. Like I posed the question, if humans have past lives, do aliens have past lives? So it gives you stuff to think about. But I throw in a lot of things like ancient aliens, alternate history, things that happened in the past affecting our present and can affect our future.
Is this a newfound niche for you? Instead of looking at pictures of Mars and shit, you're going to start pumping out some novels?
Yeah. Actually, well, when I wrote my paper on Mars, my Martian stains back in 2000, I was really immersed in the Mars stuff then. I was involved with different groups. I was checking out the images almost daily. And actually at that time, I got this idea to write a science fiction novel based on Mars. And so I sat down. I wrote one page, and that was it. I mean, that's as far as it went. I don't even know what happened to that piece of paper, but so the Mars study at that time took over. So this is a whole different thing right now. I think right now I'm getting away from that and actually want to be a novelist. I want to be a science fiction writer. Yeah, and then the difference this time is that I had the whole idea. I was inspired. This inspirational moment just hit me, and I had the whole story in my head, from beginning to end. And so as I was writing, and I realized, I was writing it out, and I wrote this. I'm almost done with Alien Cartel, and I realized that there was a sequel behind it. And then as I kept going along, I realized that I was actually writing a trilogy. So the next book in the series is going to be called Tides of Retribution.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, because I kind of leave you hanging at the end of the story of Alien Cartel, and you realize, oh shit, this is not over yet. Yeah, and then the sequel is based actually 1,200 years into the future. So it gets more advanced technology, and I play around with some ideas. Some things are familiar, some things are kind of different. But my idea, though, also is to write a science fiction in the future that shows the evolution of the spirit instead of just technology. The trend right now with science fiction is transhumanism. Where in the future we're going to be cyborgs. Be part machine or part Google eyes or Google brain. Yeah, the idea is when you parallel the evolution of technology, you have to also evolve the human mind. Because otherwise it's going to get lopsided. What's going to happen in the future if we keep along this trend? You're going to have, monkeys with iPods. Hey, right? Because if you don't evolve the human spirit along with technology, it's going to get really lopsided. So in my story, the theme is the future. In this future scenario, is that the human spirit and human civilization is evolving alongside the technology evolution.
No, that's really cool. It's a bit of a niche there. With that's one of the things I really liked about it is your sort of spiritual type shamanistic, incorporating that into the whole science fiction part of it. Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks. And actually, RPJ was in a recent episode was talking about how science fiction is a method of telling a story. And, I think that a science fiction novel or a good story has a moral tale. It has something that is getting a message across. And the last part of the series, and the trilogy, is actually the prequel, and it's set in Rome in 79 AD. So now you see the movie Cowboys and Aliens. Well, this is Romans and Aliens.
So are you working on that right now?
Yeah, I'm working on the sequel right now. It's about halfway done. And then I have an outline for the prequel.
When can we expect to see Alien Cartel, the movie?
Hey, if anybody out there is listening can write a screenplay, look me up. I think we'll make a great movie.
Maybe Grimerica can get a cameo.
I'm telling you, I was picturing, when I was reading that book, the whole thing was very easy to picture in my mind, and I definitely pictured it, like the movie scene going along with it. It's very easy to do that with that book.
Yeah, thank you. I get that from a lot of my readers. And actually, when I was writing this book and I was showing my draft around, people would describe things to me from the book, and going on for about 5-10 minutes, and I realized, wow, they're getting all of that for only 1 or 2 sentences. And to me, that's the magic of reading, is getting your imagination fired up. I don't know if you ever experienced this. You read a book and you go see a movie, from the book, and never meets your expectations.
No.
Yeah, your imagination is more powerful, more 3D than anything you could ever see in the theater. And that's what I'm trying to do as a writer, because I've been a science fiction reader for a long time, and now I'm writing something, so I want to give that to whoever's reading my book, is impart that imagination, that fire up the imagination, and just get new ideas going, just get a new thing going on in your head. Yeah, so my story, you're reading along, and you're reading about a Colombian cartel, and this happens and that happens, and pretty soon you're down this rabbit hole, and you go, fuck, how did I get here? So you kind of backtrack a little bit, you kind of, oh, okay, kind of makes sense when you read forward, and then you just go along for the ride. Then when you get to the end of the story, you realize, wow, that's actually a pretty good story. Yeah, so for the price of a movie ticket, and a box of Raisinets, you can have a theatrical experience, reading this novel. That's my goal as a writer, is to give that experience.
Yeah, we'll make sure we link to to where you can get both the paperback and the electronic version in the show notes. And I think you said you were going to send a signed copy over to the Igloo to add to our repertoire.
Oh yeah, yes sir, yeah. As soon as I get it, I should get it today or Monday. Yeah, as soon as I get it, I'll send it up to the Igloo.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon.com right now. If you went on there and did a search for Alien Cartel, you can find it, or go to my website, PalermoProject.com. I have direct links to it as well. Yeah, and this is something I just want to touch upon right now for a little bit. A recent podcast you had with the Higher Chat guys at THC, they're talking about the indie movement of podcasting, and how with the internet, you're free to express yourself and do whatever you want to do, without being hampered by the media. Yeah, so the same trend is happening with the print industry, with publishing. You can actually self-publish and be able to do it. And you don't have to run through the hoop, and go through the thread of the needle, some publisher, that might try to control what you're trying to say, so you have a lot more freedom. Another thing that helps too is the ability to print on demand. Because in the past, if you wanted to make some money, you self-publish, then you have to print like 10,000 books, right, to bring the cost down per book. But if you only sold 100 books, you're screwed, right? You got over 9,000 books now you have to get rid of. And now you have a pretty expensive paperweight. So so you have the freedom now with being able to express yourself as a writer. But when you self-publish, now you have the problem of marketing. So that's the only thing that you get away from when you don't go to a publisher. So, but really, what makes a book successful is the story itself. No amount of marketing is going to make a book really sell, that well. So that's why I'm doing this, through the podcast and doing what I can. And the best thing is if someone out there buys my book and reads it and likes it, and they promote it and talk to another friend about it or whatever, that's how it gets around. And so that is the same way, with podcasting, like you guys are doing. Someone likes your podcast and mentions somebody else, or you get another podcast that likes it, and they give mention to it. So there's a lot of freedom now, to express yourself, and I'm taking advantage of that as a writer. Yeah, and so by the spring, I should have the sequel completed, Tides of Retribution. So for all you readers that get Alien Cartel, and you like that, you're going to be in for quite a ride with the next book coming out.
Can't wait.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I'm going to wait till because I think I have it in PDF, but I'll wait till to read the actual book. I always prefer the actual book over electronic.
Yeah. And actually, when I first published the book, it came out as a Kindle ebook. Hey, the sales were okay. That was kind of low, but recently, a week and a half ago, when I got it as a paperback, it really started selling well. So yeah, I'm old-fashioned. I like having a book in my hand. Something solid, something that I can read, turn pages.
Yeah, maybe that's a dying breed. But I'm right there with you. I'd rather have books on my shelf. They'll still work after the apocalypse.
Yeah, if you need to stay warm, there you go. You got something you can make a fire with.
Yeah, well, before we let you go, Efrain, since this is kind of our end of the year special episode, and as our first guest, and as I know you're a fan of the show as well now, I suppose we just wanted to ask you if you had maybe a favorite episode in our first year, and maybe someone that a wish list for year two.
Well, yeah, that's a hard one because you have so many good shows. There was one that I listened to recently. I forgot the guy's name. He's talking about about the holograms.
Oh, Jim Elvidge.
Yes. I really liked that. That was very thought provoking, and the guy was really well spoken and really thought out. And I always had that feeling like the physical universe was an illusion. So that was a very good podcast. Yeah, but you guys have a wide spectrum of subjects and people that you interview. They're all really very good. But Yeah, but for upcoming episodes, maybe try Stanton Freeman. He's always has interesting things to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want a kick-in-the-ass guy, I think you should try Richard Hoagland.
Yeah, I wonder if he's still around. Do you have his... Wonder if I can track him down.
Yeah, maybe you should. You were involved with those guys, right, Efrain? You should hook us up with Hoagland.
Yeah, I get a hold of him and mention it to him. But you, I mean, the podcast subjects that you cover was just such a great range. I mean, I like the one also where you did the one on Egypt. Even though it's kind of political, it was appropriate to the time, to the moment. You had the stuff in the economy. So it's really a really good mix, what you guys are doing. Yeah, and from the way it started to how it evolved now, I think you guys have a great future.
That's great to hear, Efrain.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Thanks for coming on again. Thanks for the book. Thanks for just about for helping us get the ball rolling here in Grimerica. And you're welcome back anytime. Of course, we're going to throw your book on the website and a link to where to buy it. And and then of course when number 2 and number 3 come out, you can definitely come to Grimerica and we'll spread it as far as we can.
Yeah, that's great. And then I'm probably going to go to the UFO Congress coming up in February. So if you guys can make it, maybe I'll see you there.
Consciousness.
Welcome back to Grimerica. It's the end of the year kind of wrap up episode, and we've got Darren as usual and Jagger on the line from Eastern Canada. Can I say?
Parts unknown, Central Canada.
Oh, is it Central still? It's just still a long way away from us.
Yeah, it's east of anything east of the Alberta border is Eastern Canada to me. No offense.
That's true, right?
Whoa there.
So, how's it going, Jagger?
Good. How are you guys? Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year.
So we just thought we'd get you on as our, part of the genesis of this whole podcast. So it's you're kind of grandfathered in as a Grimerican, and your music's on the episodes. And what's your thought of the first year kind of thing?
Well, thanks for having me on again. I'm a fan of the show. I have to say, I think you guys have had a good year and a meteoric rise in the world of podcasting.
Was that mediocre, did you say?
Mediocre rise?
No.
Oh, meteoric.
Meteoric.
Oh, that's much
very
better.
Nice. Yeah.
Is that what I...
Oh, can that prelude into something? I saw a fucking meteor. I think it was a meteor the other night, like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day now. And it came right over the city. Now, I don't know what it was, but Darren, do you remember when I was driving home that day from your place and I told you I saw this shooting star type thing?
Yes.
So it was almost exactly the same as that. So picture a falling star, but it looks like it's in airspace and you can see like twinkling things like sparks coming off it, and then it just fades and disappears.
Son of a bitch.
So that's twice now in the city I've seen something like that. So I don't know. It's really just strange. Anyways, I thought I'd been meaning to talk to you about that and just...
I haven't been using my Sputnik. I gotta fire up that fucking Sputnik app again and see when shit's going down. Is it clear out tonight? I think it is, eh?
Yeah, maybe.
Let me see what the fuck's going on here. So anyway, Jagger, what was your favorite episode in 2013?
I actually really enjoyed, I'd have to say, the first episode with Efrain Palermo, who I actually, I think I ended up appearing on a subsequent podcast with him. Sort of listened back to that one. I find him to be a really interesting guy, and for a first podcast for you guys, I thought it was a good start.
That's funny. Efrain's actually going to be on this episode as well, talking about his new book.
Yes, I've been actually checking it out, getting emails from him and stuff about it and whatnot. So it's actually I've become a bit of a fan. So I really enjoyed that, and also your talk with Micah Hanks,
the Mouth of the South,
UFO Singularity.
Yeah,
that was a good one. Yeah,
I think I got a good buzz on during that episode. Actually, if I do recall, I think I drank a Mickey of whiskey.
Yeah.
If I don't recall,
and then fucking we couldn't record it. Micah had to record it for us and email it to us because.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Just a mess. It's a good thing it's Micah and he's a great guy. Otherwise, we would have been in real trouble. If it would have been one of our guests, some of these guys would have just been like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, boys. See you later."
Is that when you stopped drinking during podcasts after that one?
I'm not sure. I think I had a couple during the Grant Cameron one.
Yeah, probably. Well,
I'm still not against it, depending on the guest. It's just, it's a hassle. Yeah. That time I still had that big bottle of whiskey my buddy bought me. But now it's like, for me to actually go out and buy booze is kind of a stretch. I'm a grass guy. Grass-fed.
So you got any suggestions for us in 2014, Jagger?
I was actually talking to Darren about this, but a phenomenon I sort of came upon. Actually,
came upon?
Yeah.
Okay.
This phenomenon I came upon called ASMR. And actually, I just want to bring up what that acronym stands for. But it's like, you ever heard of the term like a head orgasm? Like you get tingles in your head,
Yeah.
So ASMR.
I haven't heard the term before.
Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response.
Oh.
And it's a phenomenon characterized as a distinct, pleasurable tingling sensation in the head, scalp, back, or peripheral regions of the body in response to visual, auditory, olfactory, and or cognitive stimuli. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's been happening to me.
Brainstorming.
Yeah, there's actually there's different triggers that sort of start this off, like people whispering and stuff. So there's actually these people.
or
did that make you come upon it?
Or Tibetan singing bowl.
Yeah.
So, no, it didn't work, Darren, that time.
Oh, well, we tried.
No. So, Jagger, keep going, because this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
It's been happening to me for about a year and a half now.
Yeah, so there's these, I was saying there's these people that they call themselves ASMR artists. They actually make videos on YouTube. And they like whisper, like the sound of whispering and stuff, and soft-spoken intonation into a camera or sound recording device.
Oh, come on. Maybe I should just take back what I said already.
And these are sort of triggers that sort of get this like brain orgasm. Like that's what people call it.
Oh,
nice.
What was it called? What was it called again?
ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response.
Okay.
Perfect. I want me some of that.
Did they say that it happens during exercise a lot with music? Because that's what happens to me is when I'm usually when I'm exercising, and some songs will do it like right off the bat.
Graham's just having brain orgasms all over the place when he's out jogging. Watch out for this guy.
What about that, Jagger?
Yeah. Well,
maybe no.
No, it's
more of a whispering phenomena.
Yeah, it's more of like I'm just sort of reading about it, but there's different triggers. And
yeah, because you said visual and auditory, right?
Like goal-oriented tasks. Like I get that feeling when I listen to music at times. When I just listen to music,
Yeah.
Sometimes, I understand what they're saying, but it's almost as if, and I think everybody's had that experience where you suddenly get that feeling like a tingle, like an overall just good sensation in your head, you know.
Yeah, but it also can travel through the body, like from
exactly. And it's like what sort of triggers these things? It could be like memories, like
smells,
but you know, like haircut. Like I'm just reading the examples here, like descriptive sessions in a similar style to like guided imagery for experiences such as haircuts, visits to a doctor's office, and ear cleaning.
Whoa!
I just cleaned my ears the other day with those. You know, you get those fucking drops and you put them in there, and you have to hold your fucking head on your side for like 20 minutes. Yeah, I did that. So I still don't think I can hear any better.
You didn't use the ear candles?
No, I was looking for that shit, man. I could never find them. I've heard about them, but I've never tried it.
Yeah,
I've never even seen it. They probably got banned because too many motherfuckers lit themselves on fire.
Yeah, I remember them from like 15 years ago, and now they're nowhere to be found.
Whatever happened to good old Darwinism? Anyway, that's fucking... We should find a dude about that. We should find a brain orgasm dude.
Yeah, totally. I want to know more about it because, like, honestly, there's certain songs. There's about 2 or 3 songs that I listen to usually at any one time that'll just trigger that right away for me.
Yeah, me too, man.
Do they talk about? Does a song ever trigger like crying for you at all?
It's like.
Come on, you can say anything.
I've never really thought. I know. I never really thought of it, but yeah, I have had that where it's like it just feels so good, like hearing it that. You have like a physical reaction to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've definitely had that. But it's not all the time, though. You know, it's just when there's a certain
mood or
whatever.
When the moon is full.
Or something, you know. But they really emphasize the people that are into it that it's not a sexual thing. It's calming and relaxing.
Okay, so it is a positive.
Thing, and it's not. And it's not a sexual thing.
Darren, you're quiet.
I was looking for a sound bite, but it's not happening. But yeah, we should find a guy on that. I'd like to hear more about that. It's all about stimulating your brain, man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think it's a sense of sort of working your brain in a certain way, sort of like meditation, right? Yeah. Or, you know, I understand that you guys are going to be hitting up the deprivation chambers this weekend.
Yes. So this will be interesting.
I'm going to stimulate my brain a couple times this weekend.
I met a girl on New Year's that does meditation. She actually had to do some sort of paper on it too, where she had to do all this research into the scientific evidence, and she wants to come on the show too and talk about that. I told her we want to do a show on meditation, so she's like fresh into the digging into all the scientific results, so that'll be good.
That would be good.
I think meditation is like yoga was 20 years ago. Like meditation in the next 5-10 years is going to just keep pervading our mainstream culture.
Pervading, that's a good choice of words for this last little couple of minutes. Anyway, on that note, Jagger, we'd like to thank you for popping in and helping us reflect a little bit on our year. Thanks as always for the music, and we should try to have on maybe a little bit more in the new year.
Yeah, well, my band, High School Sweetheart, I'm going to throw in a plug here. Our album's coming out January 25th. www.facebook.com/High School Sweetheart, all one word. You can check out some music there. January 25th.
January 25th. We will. Maybe down the road you can throw us a song or two, and we'll play them for the guys.
Absolutely.
For the listeners, the guys and gals, I suppose.
There are no women that listen to this show.
Yeah, there's a couple.
1 or 2. My wife listens, and my mom. Okay, thanks for coming on, Jagger. I want to talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay. Take care.
Have a good 2014.
Okay, next. Okay, next up in Grimerica, we're going to be chatting with Red Pill Junkie and Jared Drake, both familiar voices here in Grimerica, to kind of reflect on the year that was. But first, how's it going, Graham?
Hey, it's going good. Nice to be here, guys. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, motherfuckers.
Feliz Año Nuevo.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good. Really excited, of starting the new year, of all the things that we hopefully will be able to do in the Grimerica show.
Right on. Yeah, we are too. So that's what we're going to talk about. Like, what are some of your highlights from Grimerica's last 8 months of 2013, and what are some of the things you guys want us to try or want us to do for the new year?
Highlights, I'd have to go with the Into the Mushroom. I thought that was fantastic.
That was a highlight for me too.
Yeah, mind altering, mind opening. It was just great to be part of that. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was great to have you guys on there. I've heard from some friends back home in Vancouver and stuff that say, yeah, that was an epic episode, and it seems like we really did something out of the ordinary there. It was cool.
Yeah, it was a fun experiment. It was innovative, creative, It was interesting to partake of the kind of joint experience, of hearing Darren and his friend, entering that altered state of consciousness and trying to report back to us as best they could.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was it. Maybe next year we'll do a sequel.
Acid.
Yeah, I don't know about that, to do it any acid.
That would be interesting.
Maybe I could find someone else.
Doing it on a more natural.
You get a little digital recorder and go do it out in the bush with a bonfire.
And a psychomantium.
Yeah.
That might be a bit much.
Yeah.
Could
So
be
what
a
else?
bit much.
What else from the year, Jared? Any other ones that?
What was his name? Was it Robert Sullivan the Fourth?
Yeah, the Mason.
Yeah. Always freaks me out. There's a nice drive that I go on down to the beach in town, and it goes past the Freemasons building. Like, there's a building here, so their clubhouse.
Yeah.
And there's incredible security going up to that, and just gives me the willies every time I go past it. And that's, I don't know if that's fair or not, but you just don't know enough about them. You try to, but you still have your own perception of what you think they get up to in there.
Yeah, totally. My cousin's a Mason too, and I was surprised. He thought the episode was pretty good too. I didn't know what he would think about it, but we kind of bantered back and forth and all that about whether he really disclosed anything or not. And it's hard to know whether if this is a 32nd degree, so what's in the 33rd, right? Maybe there is some secrets up there that you don't find out about unless you actually make it all the way up there.
I thought that was just honorary, though. That's how they play it off.
Yeah.
Maybe that just means you have to be hand-selected.
Invite only. But then, you put it all together, you hear all these different stories about the different clubs, so to speak, things as far as like Madonna, for instance, up in the with her and Kabbalah and things like that, and having her own DNA crew and stuff going behind her. You don't know what some of these people are really up to at that point.
Yeah, true. Maybe we should have Madonna on.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It'll get the ratings up.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's not Madonna anymore either. It's MDMA.
Oh, even better.
Isn't it? Yeah.
MDNA?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Nice.
not MDMA.
Back to the 80s.
That's going to be the substance of our next episode. It'll be MDMA with MDNA.
Yeah. Who's doing that? Not this guy.
Round table.
I only eat stuff that comes out of the dirt.
Nice.
That's good. So what about 2014, Jared? Anything besides MDMA with Madonna?
Well, that will be the highlight. Apart from that, really got a few good ideas for some blogs. Want to get into that. Want to I've got everything set up here quite nicely for myself to get really stuck into some decent research and coming up with a few angles of my own. So there's a few ideas in the pipeline, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck into those.
We can't wait to hear about them.
Yeah, definitely be all over your site with you, you know. So yeah, it's a great outlet.
Yeah, that's great. We can have you on and talk about some of these researched topics.
Yeah. I've tried to taper things, you know, with my work and everything like that to be able to dedicate a bit more time in those directions. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you there, Red Pill? What about you?
Yeah, sorry for being so quiet because I've been having a bit of sound issues. Would you please repeat the question?
We were just wondering what your favorite moments of 2013 are, and what some stuff you hope to see or hear in the 2014.
Well, I like first to say that I think that the Grimerica show had one hell. If people, you know, just listening to one episode would never think that this is actually our first year, you know, due to not only of the quality of the production that Darren managed to provide, but also the type of the lineup of guests you guys managed to obtain, you know, for the episodes. As for my favorite episodes, I think that, and no disrespect, like I said, no disrespect to the other guests, because I think that they were all, even if maybe I didn't manage to agree with what some of them said, you know, 100%, but I think they were all very interesting. They were all had very valuable things to say. But my three favorite shows so far has been the one with Dennis McKenna, the one with Grant Cameron. You know, I mean, he's one of my favorite ufologists in the whole world, and also the one with Mr. Stanley Krippner. You know, his all the tales about his friend Rolling Thunder and all the research he's managed to do through all his decades of investigating parapsychology. That was a very fascinating episode.
And still at it.
Yeah, still at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
The kind of people who don't know the word retiring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what about next year, Red? Besides you coming on a little bit more with us.
Well, you know, I mean, I think it's what else should we have on the Grimerica show that maybe we haven't really touched upon yet? On the top of my head right now, I could think of maybe cryptozoology.
Bigfoot, yeah.
I don't think well, not only Bigfoot, but also maybe, you know, you guys are in Canada. If you could manage to find someone who's looked into the case of the Lake Champlain monster, Ogopogo, you know, on the Lake Okanagan, that would be awesome.
Road trip.
Bring golf clubs.
That sounds great. Maybe we could also touch upon something more of a paranormal streak. You know, maybe talk with a couple of ghost hunters.
Yeah, that's another avenue. I think Chase was the only really ghost person we had on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't really had a cryptozoologist at all, I don't think, have we?
No, we have to do the Sasquatch one. I was emailing our new blogger Justin about that because he's been into Sasquatch for a couple of years. So I was asking him what his thoughts were on that.
Sam Squanch.
Mm-hmm. And I want to do more of a spiritual. I want to do a couple episodes on meditation and get a little bit more spiritual. Maybe one on vibrations and that type of stuff.
I don't have the ball.
No problem whatsoever with that. What's that?
I don't have the ball.
No, you don't have a bowl.
A vibration ball. Well, I wasn't ready. You got to cue me.
You lost your bowl, your Tibetan bowl.
It's just it's in studio. It's just not in my hands.
You should always keep it on your hands, man. That's why you don't raise your vibrations enough.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a slacker.
Well, I wanted to thank you guys for being with us through this whole journey, like for the last 8 months. I mean, it's been fascinating for Darren. I know I can probably speak for Darren on this too. Is just having you guys along for this journey and just getting to know you and chatting about all these different things. It's been like we didn't even expect it, really, eh, Darren?
No, it's been great. It's been real eye-opening and get a lot closer with some new friends. You know, Jared, we just kind of met through the show, and that's been great. And Red, we've known for a little longer, but it still gives us an excuse to get in touch a lot more often.
That's been fantastic. Real privilege.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been a great enjoy in the chance I've had of trying to contact you guys through Skype once a week, you know, to discuss these things, because that's why all of us, I think, decided to enter into this crazy field.
Okay, guys, today here in Grimerica, we're going to be chatting with author and I believe even an archaeologist in his own right, Fritz Zimmerman. But first, as always, how's it going tonight, Graham?
Hey, I'm doing good, Darren. Nice to be here. I've been wanting to chat about giants and this type of thing for a while now.
And the Nephilim?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. And he was hinting in the pre-show about a bit of numerology as well. So that stuff really fascinates me. I don't really know fuck all about it, but it definitely fascinates me.
Yeah, so we have Fritz Zimmerman here. He's an independent researcher, author, and antiquities preservationist. He's been researching this for about 10 years, and he came up with his 2-volume work, the Nephilim Chronicles. And it's pretty much the most complete reporting of all of the giant skeletons unearthed throughout the ages across the globe. And so Volume 1 is Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley. And then Volume 2 is a travel guide to the ancient ruins in the Ohio Valley. So we're going to have lots to chat about here. Welcome to the program, Fritz.
Thanks. Yeah, glad to be here tonight.
So I guess to start off, I've been fascinated by this giants thing for a while, but I really don't know much about it, and it's one of those topics where, like, we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff on the show, like, you know, UFOs and consciousness and whatever, but even that stuff is kind of mainstream compared to some of the stuff that you're researching here. Like, if I was to just chat with people day to day and tell them that there's you know, evidence of giants being unearthed, they would. It's a tough one to get across, right? So I guess let's start with I guess your research into these chronicles and how you ended up sort of changing direction.
Well, like most things, you know, that are large or big, they start out small and with no intent of actually ending up where you inevitably do end up, but where I live, we have the second largest genealogical library in the United States. And what that means is that I have access, no matter where you live in the U.S., I probably have your county history about 5 blocks down the street from me. And in those county histories, they would sometimes have a section called Antiquities, where if there were burial mounds or certain things that were found in that county, they would report that, and that would end up in the county history. Well, there are hundreds of these accounts where they were digging into mounds, or somebody was digging a cellar, and they came across skeletons that ranged anywhere from 7 to 9.5 foot. And I was researching the mounds, and of course in researching the mounds, I was in the county histories, and so it just started to snowball, because I kept finding large skeletons. And while they're found in almost all 50 states, they're predominantly, like 70%, 75% of them are in the Ohio Valley. And of course, that's where the Adena Hopewell culture is. That's where all the largest mounds, geometric earthworks that utilize pi and square root for their construction. And so what was unveiled was really a civilization that, in every essence, you could call that, because of the science and technology that was used to construct the ceremonial center. So very multi-layered. Finding the giants took about 4 years, and then figuring out where all the giants came from was about another 7 years.
Wow.
So pretty extensive. And so the book is really in two parts. There was one wave of giants that came here with a people called the Maritime Archaic. These were the last remnants of the Cro-Magnon species. And they came over here about 7,000 to 2,000 BC. That was followed by the Adena, better known as the Beaker people, the same people that built Stonehenge, the same people that are mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 6:4, where it says there were giants in those days. And that would take us to about 3,000, 2,700 BC. That wave comes over here. So there's really two waves of giants that came over. Both actually were remnants of the Cro-Magnon species. In the book also, I have about 10 accounts of them finding 20,000, 15,000-year-old Cro-Magnon remains that were 7, 8 foot tall. So that certainly was the gene pool that would inevitably be the rest of the giants that would be documented in my book. So it's more scientific, where we look at skull types, skulls with occipital buns, skulls with protruding brow ridge, sloping foreheads, massive jaws, almost Neanderthal-like, and where we can match these things up across the globe from the biblical Levant through Europe, predominantly in England and around Stonehenge, associated with the Beaker people, and then eventually over into the Ohio Valley.
Wow. So, geez, I don't know where to start after that. So the 7 foot to 9 foot. So it's funny because I listened to your audiobook, and it was fascinating, but it was quite the historical account, like just account after account after account of these bones being found and dug up and somewhat disappearing. And it's too bad I didn't have the actual hard copy of the book, because I know it would be like a reference book of if you ever need to go back and find information on these. So you were looking back through old newspaper articles and all that. So what did you find out about all these giant bones being discovered? So did the Smithsonian come and swoop them all away, or like how is this not part of our mainstream culture right now?
Well, yes, there's probably at least, I haven't actually counted them, but I would say there's over 100 accounts where they had found these large skeletons, and it would be a note at the end of the history or a newspaper article that said, the Smithsonian is en route. They're coming to get these skeletons. Now, the Smithsonian would say, oh, well, all the skeletons, they were all hoax. None of them were that large, so, that was a hoax, and so they're the ones to perpetuate that myth. But what's interesting is, if they were all a hoax, why in the 1800s, where it wasn't easy to get to a small town, Indiana or Ohio, why were they coming all the way from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, good
to
point.
get these skeletons?
Yeah.
So it kind of defeats what they're saying, what they're still saying today, what the universities are saying today, of saying that every one of those accounts was a hoax. Well, then why was the Smithsonian coming, and why did they keep coming? Because they come to like 5 or 6 and found out that there was a mammoth bone or something, or it wasn't human. Why did they keep coming? But they kept coming, and you'll read account after account after account. Smithsonian's coming, and after that they just disappeared. No one ever saw them again.
And when was this? In the early 1900s, late 1800s?
Yeah, a lot of the county histories were done from 1880 to about 1910. A lot of the newspaper articles will run, 20s, 30s, 40s. That's somewhat limited because of copyright laws to keep the dates back somewhat. But turn of the century. Now, what's interesting is that people were telling what I'm going to say is the truth before archaeology was established in the universities, which happened in the 1930s. At that time, the line came out, no, there was no giant race. All the mound builders were Native American. That became the line, and everyone stuck to it, from the universities to government officials. And that is when the free speech, free knowledge, free exchange, that was put to a halt.
Up until fairly recently, like you and obviously some other people have been digging deep into this over the last decade or two, I guess. So is that when it started to come out a little bit more?
Well, I think my book has more than anything that's ever been published. I have over 300 accounts, and I don't think that anything even comes close to that.
Not only that, I think, like, I've read, if you read a lot of the old mythology and even like Native American mythology, the Bible talks about the Nephilim and a bunch of others. They all seem to have these historical accounts of a giant race too. It's not just the Bible. It seems like almost like the flood myth that's scattered throughout the planet.
Right. I mean, there's almost every organized people had some legend of an ancient giant race that, survived as stories, made it into, their mythology that in fact was the truth. And, at some point, there's always a kernel of truth in all mythology. And when you have all around the world them saying the exact same thing. And what's also interesting is that they always attach kind of a demigod status, that somehow these were the product of genetic manipulation, or the angels descending, which is a story in the Bible. The angels descended on Mount Hermon. They have an oath to procreate with these women. The result is this giant race, or this Nephilim race, this somewhat abomination, this genetic abomination. Now, scientifically, we can look at that, and the genetic manipulation was that some of the Cro-Magnon had mixed with Neanderthal, and it was that genetic manipulation that spurred the giants. And we find that within the skeletal remains. We find occipital buns, which you would find on Neanderthal. We find the massive jaws, the protruding brow ridge, the sloped forehead. In many instances, the skull types are actually more Neanderthal-like than modern. And that's kind of the scientific aspect that we look, and we can look at the skulls and say, yeah, this is what this came from. Now, archaeologists or anthropologists are saying, or have said up until just a few years ago, they had, as far as Neanderthal goes, what was the theory of replacement, which means that the Neanderthals were simply replaced by Cro-Magnon. Other people had what was called the assimilation model, and that was that Cro-Magnon did mix with Neanderthal. Of course, archaeologists fought tooth and nail, saying that wasn't true. Of course, now we know that the archaeologists were wrong the whole time, and that the Cro-Magnon did mix with Neanderthal. And if you are non-African descent, you have about 5% Neanderthal DNA in your system. We know red hair. We know that the ginger gene originated with Neanderthal. So again, all this happening in the northern latitude. So where do you find red hair? You find it in people that live in the north. So some of that survived up into present day.
So it's safe to say that my redheaded friends are more Neanderthal than I am?
Well, they're showing more. You may have more deep down. But yeah, they're showing more. Yeah, that is a Neanderthal trait. That's where it originated. So But we know that now, that happened. But, like most things in current academia, it's that they take the complete wrong view, fight tooth and nail to protect it, and then inevitably, after overwhelming evidence, they eventually will cave. And then I think this is another topic that eventually they're going to cave, and that there were migrations. Of course, academia is with the Beringia theory, saying that the only people that ever came to North America were 8 families who crossed over the Alaskan Ice Bridge and came down. And those 8 families inevitably populated all of North America. So every Native American tribe, South America, all of it originated from about 8 families, which is ridiculous.
So this is definitely a global phenomenon, and you can see them migrating over to North America.
I swear there was something in the headlines there just a couple of weeks ago about some new fossils they found somewhere up in Russia there that made them take back Native Americans' ascent into North America to like 26,000 BC or something like that.
Well, that very well could be, and there's certain tribes in North America that were part of the Maritime Archaic. Now, what's interesting is that some of the Cro-Magnon had Oriental features to them, and you could find somewhat of a Native American Cro-Magnon type skeleton in Northern Europe, and then across the northern, tier of Asia on into Japan. So that Maritime Archaic people, some of them came over by boat, specifically the Cherokee, the Sioux, and the Iroquois, who are one people. That is 3 tribes that split about 5,000 BC is when they split, but they were all part of the Maritime Archaic. So their roots, you really don't want to say Europe because they weren't European. They were living in the northern latitude. So some of them may have been across the northern Urals into Russia and then that whole thing. But through that northern area are the same burial types in pits with red ochre, a lot of times fires being included in the grave. Something called a plummet is associated with them. But they had a almost identical material culture that we can track all the way around the world, along with the large skeletons and along with somewhat of a primitive skull type. Now, some of those primitive skull types would become European. Some of those primitive skull types would become Native Americans. So not to diminish any people, I mean, we all came from that same seed, but skeletal-wise, we can identify them.
Any elongated?
Not really of what you're thinking of. If you're thinking more of the Inca type or some of the ones that were found in Egypt, some of that is related, but really what we're going to find, now we'll jump ahead to the Adena and the Beaker people and the people they talked about in the Bible. There's a specific people called the Dinaric, and their heads are somewhat elongated, but they're elongated upwards. So they're almost like cone-headed looking people. It's kind of a somewhat description of them, but their heads are pushed up and the backs of their heads are flat. Now, that type of Dinaric we can track from the biblical lands into the Caucasus. We also find them associated with Stonehenge because Dinaric type skulls are found in Stonehenge, and then that type of skull is very predominant in the Ohio Valley. They were all tall with the weird head types, still showing some of a protruding brow ridge. So, but you can take one from Europe in the Ohio Valley, and an expert can't tell them apart.
So what is so special about the Ohio Valley then? Like, is there any theories on why it ended up there?
Well, yeah, that's what part 2 of my book is all about. It's probably the more exciting. The Maritime Archaic, of course, there's lots of giants, and we track them across the world. But, the real sizzle, because it involves Stonehenge and all the geometric earthworks in the Ohio Valley. The prototype to every mound in the Ohio Valley, which is a mound with a circle or a ditch going around it, a henge. Now, we think of Stonehenge when we think of the stones. However, the hinge part is a circular earthwork with an outer wall, an interior ditch, opposite of what a fort would be, and a gateway that is aligned to a solar event. Stonehenge, the gateway, the earthen gateway with the ditch is aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. And then we find these hinges all throughout the Ohio Valley. So the circular earthwork, outer wall, interior ditch, gateway aligned to a solar event. We find those out throughout the Ohio Valley of Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. We find them in those states. We find mounds with circles around them. We find the same Dinaric-type skulls that we would find over in England and back into the Levant. Two other people called the corded people because of the pottery, but we find those in England. We find those over here. And then what's called Borreby, Cro-Magnon sometimes. We find that as the third contingent of who built Stonehenge. Those three skull types also in the Ohio Valley. So three very distinct skull types we find in the mounds and around Stonehenge and throughout England and Scotland. And then we find the same three in the Ohio Valley, along with the hinges and the burial mounds that are identical, the conical mounds with the circles around them. So some very iconic symbolism that you find in both those regions, along with identical skull types. So really only someone in the academic field could look at that kind of evidence and deny it.
Is that
you need a doctorate to be able to deny that kind of evidence.
Is that serpent mound in Ohio, is that related to these mounds at all, or?
Yes, absolutely. And, well, it's kind of frustrating because some archaeologists found some charcoal in one of the upper levels, and now is saying that it dates to like 800 AD. That's ridiculous. It doesn't. Because the serpent has three bends in its body, three turns of the tail. It's facing the confluence of three creeks. And then over in Oban, Scotland, we have almost an identical serpent with a lot of large skeletons found around that, where we have a serpent pointing to a solar event. It had the same kind of, in the mouth where the egg or the solar disk is, they found the same type of charcoal, but the construction of it was almost identical. So, yeah, those two things we can find on both sides of the Atlantic also. But, yeah, the serpent mound was done by the Adena, but I would say Adena/Beaker people. Of course, Beaker people are the ones that built Stonehenge. So, yeah, just another element that we can take from both sides and say, yeah, these are identical.
So what do you think happened to this race of giants, or these multiple races of giants? Like, were they just slowly dwindling away and couldn't sustain themselves, and then at one point a couple thousand years ago they're just non-existent, or?
They were, well, over in the biblical lands, you know, of course there's a story, Joshua comes in and just slaughters a bunch of them, but most of them had already left by then. Most of them were on their way out. So some of them were heading to England. Some of them were heading here. At about 1500 BC in England is when the Celts start moving into that region, and that kind of pushes them out of England. Some of them would stay and probably intermingle and intermarry with the Celts. Of course, a lot of the religion would still hang on. The same kind of Druid pagan religion was started by these people. And then the ones over here would inevitably mix with the Sioux, the Iroquois, and the Cherokee, because those three peoples were who archaeologists call the Hopewell mound builders. So here they were basically just absorbed. Now we have evidence of that because in those three people we have the highest incident of what they call haplo-X, which is a DNA marker. Now, the origins of DNA or haplo-X is in the biblical Levant around the Sea of Galilee, and that just happens to be where the giants live that are talked about in the Bible. And all around that area is dolmens, minnows, standing stones. There was somewhat of a transition around 2700 BC where they were moving away from stone circles and the minnows and standing stones and all that, and were going to more of what you would find in the Ohio Valley with the hinges, etc. So the stones were kind of going out of style, and then mounds would replace those and hinges.
So obviously some of the giants, like the smaller ones being, let's say, 7 feet or whatever, would almost fit in with us in a way, but then obviously that would be like a smaller giant, and the larger ones being 9 foot or 10 foot would be quite outstanding.
Right. And, you know, it was a large race, but it was probably the nobility, if we could call it that. They were the ones who were intermarrying. They were the ones who were perpetuating the gigantism, the giant gene. And, you know, of course, those were the people that were getting the large burial mounds and, you know, the things that we would see today. So, you know, I don't know that it's like 100% of the population, like everybody in the population is 7.5, 8 foot tall. But there certainly was a contingent, and a rather large contingent, just because of the skeletal remains that were left in these regions that, you know, those did exist. Now, in England, and luckily I had access to all the county histories in England also, so there's 25, 30 accounts of them finding large skeletons in the burial mounds all throughout southern England, Scotland, and a few in Ireland also. So there is documentation, again, of the same type of people that were there that was found over here.
Maybe we're shrinking.
Slowly they did. But, you know, they mixed with, you know, the Sioux, the Cherokee, and the Iroquois. But just look in history. Who were the largest Native Americans? Mm-hmm. Well, the Sioux were. Mm-hmm. Specifically the Osage, and the Osage even has legends that they inhabited the Ohio Valley at one time. I know people say, well, they never did. It's like, well, we're talking 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, you know, don't give me your 1800s history and say, well, they never lived in the Ohio Valley. It's like, well, they did 2,000 years ago. And the Sioux had the history of being mound builders, as did the Iroquois, as did the Cherokee.
I wonder
they were burying their dead in mounds.
I wonder where the Ojibwe fit into that. Maybe I'm part Nephilim.
Well, actually, Ojibwe does have high rates of haploX, and what's interesting about that is the reason that they came here in the first place was that 2700 BC is the beginning of the Bronze Age, and they needed copper and they needed tin. Well, the best copper with the most pure copper in the world is Isle St. Royal, 99.9% pure. 10 deposits were within 30 miles of Stonehenge. So these Nephilim, also known as the Amorites in the Bible, were metal traders. They were going everywhere trying to find this. So what brought them here was the copper. What brought them to England was the tin. The Ojibwe were up there in that Lake Superior region, and certainly may have been part of the mining operations where they were pulling 50,000 tons of copper out of Isle St. Royal that's never been accounted for. I mean, they'll find maybe a copper emblem here and there in mounds, but no one's ever come even close to figuring out where all this copper went. There's 10,000 mines up there.
Maybe that's all the wiring for the Great Pyramid.
Holes. Well, a lot of it did make its way back there. I've even read that they have found Lake Superior copper in Egyptian bowls, but again, because that's not part of the paradigm of academia, you're not going to hear that on the news or anything like that. But
so you're saying
it has been found over there.
I wonder if it isn't the remnants of some, like, you could see how if like some shit went down today and there wasn't much humans left, like maybe there was just a few of these giants left on an island and they had a little more better technology, so they were cruising around while the rest of us were still living in little huts and shit and gathering up all this copper, and maybe it was Atlantis.
Well, there is some historical provenance to that theory, because in the book of Enoch, when it says that the angels came down, it says that they gave the giant race secrets. And one of those secrets was how to make metal. And another one of those was how to make weapons. And we know the Amorites, historically, when they were controlling Babylon in 1950 BC, developed high mathematics. So pi, square root, all of that stuff is 4,000 years old, but it emanated from this giant race. So the laws we have, Hammurabi, he was part of that. Laws, the first laws of the world were developed by these people. They use the duodecimal base 12 numbering system. When you look at a clock, when you look at a calendar, 12s, all those 12s belong to the Amorites. I mean, they exist today. Even part of their language exists today. A lot of the Latin root words actually came from Samaria and Babylon. So they did. They were more advanced than anyone else. They had the weapons technology. They had the mining technology. They had shipping technology to go out and find this when nobody else could. So
they were 3 feet taller.
They were more advanced.
And they could just kick the shit out of you if you tried to stop them from taking your copper. But I guess at that time, the locals really didn't have much of a use for copper yet. They were just kind of starting to figure it out. Probably from watching these giants.
Yeah, there was a copper age, but that was, you know, if you were in battle and one guy had a copper and the other guy had bronze, you definitely wanted the bronze. So copper was quickly being replaced.
So you're saying, sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, just about the mines, like you said, there's thousands of old copper mines in that area?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. And there's like 50,000 tons or something, some incredible amount that was actually mined out of North America and shipped somewhere else in the world, or moved somewhere else in the world, and nobody really wants to talk about this.
No, because that would, if you talked about it, that would say that you believed in diffusion, saying that somebody else came over here. So if nobody came over here except 8 families across the Alaskan ice bridge, well, they couldn't have been mining copper. So, you know, why would they be moving? There was one instance in the book that I have. They were moving this 5,000-ton rock of copper up to the surface.
Oh, I remember
now,
this.
Why would you have 5,000-ton piece of copper and the manpower that must have taken to dig around this thing? Why would you be doing that if you were going to make an earring or a ring out of it? You probably didn't need a I mean, you could find that stuff on the surface back then. I mean, if you wanted a copper ring or something, you didn't have to dig for it. I mean, it's just laying on the surface.
I bet you that shit will turn up in Egypt.
Well, there's the thing about the marker on, I'll say, royal copper is that the one impurity is silver, and so it'll have tiny little silver specks in it, and they have found that in Egypt.
I wonder.
So it was making its way over there, and and you know, everything is economics. I mean, everything gets done and invented and because of economics. There's money involved in it. Well, here's the same case. There was money involved in it. That's what was bringing them over here. Eventually, they were getting thrown out of the biblical lands. They were getting thrown out of England. And this is really the last bastion of that Nephilim giant race that they talk about in the Bible. So it all ended here, but it ended kind of, you know, ungloriously. They basically were just absorbed into the Hopo culture. And you can believe the Walamolam that there was some wars with the Algonquin people that were coming in from the north that probably shattered that. We know 535 AD, Krakatoa blows, creating a nuclear, basically what is a nuclear winter for like 3 years. Rome fell 535 AD. Teotihuacan, South America falls. We're seeing civilizations go. It just so happens that the Adena Hopo culture in the Ohio Valley falls at about the same time. So that might have had a lot to do with just the end of these geometric earthworks being constructed.
I'm gonna throw something crazy out there, but has anybody thought that maybe Bigfoot or the Sasquatch or these other sort of paranormal race of giants, or people would say paranormal's bad, they're cryptozoological, but anybody thought that maybe that's a lost race of these giants that just sort of had to move into the woods or the snowy hills of Tibet or wherever you find these abominable snowmen type Sasquatch?
Well, some people allude to that, and they're just absolutely wrong. No. I mean, these were humanoids. They weren't furry creatures living, in the woods. However, if you go to a more spiritual aspect of the story, there's something called the fairy race, and they're tied with the mounds in England. They're somewhat tied to the mounds here. This dealing with the spirit world. The story in the Book of Enoch is that there was this fairy race who didn't really have a problem with Lucifer when he rebelled, and it made God mad, and God sends them to hell. And about mid-flight on their way down, he changed his mind, and he condemned those spirits to earth. And they became spirits wherever they landed. So if they landed in water, they were water spirits. And if they landed in the woods, they called them wood or wildmen spirits. And they have this egress underground. They're tied in with the mounds. They're tied in with these hinges. My theory has always been that if there's Bigfoot, that they're more related to more of a supernatural phenomena, that they can come and go, manifest, disappear, move around pretty much at will. And I'm not a real big Bigfoot follower, but from what I've read, they certainly seem to follow that pattern.
Yeah, it's funny.
Where they can move around in the woods. They can be in front of you, then be behind you, then be on the side of you.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a spiritual manifestation.
Yeah.
But it's kind of tied into that giant theory, because now what's interesting in the spiritual aspect of the mounds and earthworks over in England and here is that they believed in what's called ancestral worship. That means when they constructed a mound and they put people in it, people no longer were considered individuals. They were considered a collection of spirits, like a collective, like one being. So the people in the mound were actually just a kind of a force unto themselves. But people would go to the mounds and pray. But the important thing is that their spirits never left. The spirits never went to Valhalla. They never went to the happy hunting ground. They stayed right here. So when you go to a mound, those spirits are there. That was where you went. You really didn't leave. You were there to guide and protect your people forever. And it has something to do with, if you're into the paranormal, is why is Ohio the most haunted place in America? Why is the most haunted place in America Moundsville Prison, that just happens to have the largest burial mound at 70 foot in its front lawn, that had a woman that was about 7'8" and a man that was over 8 foot, two skeletons in that one mound, right in their front lawn. So there is a connection between the spiritual world, the burial mounds, which are doorways to the other world, and Ohio being so haunted. There were 10,000 doorways, burial mounds there. That means there were 10,000 doorways to the other side. That's why Ohio is so haunted. It's why Indiana's so haunted. It's why West Virginia is so haunted. I mean, those states are by far the most haunted in the United States, maybe in the world.
That's crazy. I mean, what's worse than being haunted by a ghost? Being haunted by a giant ghost.
Yeah, with ties to Satan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, where does you must get a lot of interest from the ancient aliens or the ancient astronaut crowd these days as well, I'd assume?
Well, yeah, I've talked to a few groups like that, and I can somewhat substantiate their theories. I mean, I'm not leave a door open for that, because you have the angels descending onto Mount Hermon to create this race of giants. Well, if you're a believer in the Bible, you're going to say they're angels. If you're a believer in ancient astronauts, you're going to say they were aliens. So I like to leave some interpretation up to the reader and say, well, I can get you here, and I can give you the evidence that this happened. So your interpretation of exactly who those angels are is really up to you. So, yeah, we're on the same page.
Are there any fossils or remnants of a giant accessible today anywhere that haven't been hidden away?
There are a few. There's a few pictures that I have been able to find of, the giant skeletons and some mummified remains. But, I got to give our government credit, because they did a pretty nice scrub on this.
Would you even call it the government, or was it more of, institutionalized sort of corporations, kind of beyond the government in a way?
Well, it was the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian was, before, archaeology leached into the universities. I mean, they were it. But the head of the Smithsonian was sympathetic to Native Americans, and he said anything that links these mound builders to other races and diffusion and all that, it's like, get rid of it. We don't want that. That's not going to be our line on America's history. So, all these guys were sent out. In one instance, in Brewersville, Indiana, it was kind of a slip-up because one of the Smithsonian agents told the woman this skeleton was 9 foot, and she asked him, she was like, who are these people? And she says, he goes, well, this was an ancient white race that used to live here, and we're just going out and we're getting their bones. So he told her what they were doing.
Wow.
But he said, it was like, this is an ancient white race, and yeah, we're coming here to collect them. We're getting them all. And it was such a fantastic find. Somebody find a 9 foot human skeleton, People would go and appear in the newspaper. So a lot of times they would say, hundreds of people were coming by every day to see, these remains. It would be displayed at the local hardware store or something. But they would catch wind of that. Yeah, they would come and get that skeleton.
I wonder why they would say white race. Just to help them get some ownership over the land in some fucked up, perverted way, or seems weird.
Well, I mean, the giants, like I said, the Hopewell were Native Americans. They had some infusion of Cro-Magnon or Caucasian blood in them. We know that. But, the giants themselves, yeah, they were a Caucasian race. They were white skins. The Indians talk about them. The Cherokee, the Iroquois, the Sioux, the Algonquins, they talk about white Indians. White Indians were gigantic in size.
Wow.
So light skin, white skin, they talk about them.
What about the Vikings?
But, that's so politically un-PC now. That's not going to see the light of day. I mean, not on your local television channel anyway.
Yeah.
BFIs.
So what about the Vikings then? I guess, is that part of the Celtic part that you were talking about, or is that?
No, that's all much later. It's all been done by then. We're talking an end date of 535 AD. So
right.
Yeah, that's way down the road.
Okay. So now, is there a bit of a movement here to do some more digging or uncover things? Is there people sort of behind the scenes looking to find some fresh evidence here?
Well, if you got caught digging, they'd put you away longer than they did Nelson Mandela. No, you're not allowed to dig. You're not allowed to touch anything. Now, archaeologists can dig.
Right.
They've destroyed tens of thousands of mounds. But, to their credit, they have come up with a theory that they don't know who the mound builders were, they don't know where they came from, and they don't know where they went. So $80,000 in a 4-year degree will get you that bit of information. So they don't know anything. They're not willing to say anything. They're just dummying up on the whole topic. that they don't have any answers for it. And I am very anti-dig. Leave the mounds alone. You've dug into 10,000 of them. You have no answers. These are, these are antiquities. These are something that was built 2,000 years ago by an advanced race. What is served to destroy it?
So
we should leave these as icons for future generations.
So you figure that they've already covered. Yeah, they've already covered it up. They're already going to continue covering it up. So why keep ruining them? That kind of thing.
Right. I mean, if your theory is you don't know who they are, don't know where they went, don't know where they came from, what's going to be served by digging into another mound except it's grant money for archaeologists, which is all that is being done. An archaeologist will get a grant to destroy a mound, to write a paper that will agree with the guy that gave him the grant. I mean, it's just become an industry of destruction of America's antiquities. So, and since they're the only people that get a license to dig into a mound, stop it. Now, there are some subsurface tombs that didn't have mounds where they found giants. They found graveyards of giants. So I don't know, I'd be as opposed to somebody just stumbling onto something and then expanding the dig. Of course, if I did that, I wouldn't touch one skeleton. I would photograph it and then cover it up as methodically as I dug it into it. But I would never remove or destroy or anything of a mound.
Why is that? Spiritual reasons or more scientific reasons?
Yeah, a lot of it would be not to disturb a burial, but what's served by putting a skeleton in a box and taking it to the university? And if you uncovered it and said, all right, this guy was buried in a sitting position or extended position, these are the artifacts that he had with him, photographs of those, and then you covered him up, you would have the same information as destroying the mound, putting the bones in the box, putting some of the artifacts in a box, and putting the really good ones, of course, in your pocket for sale on eBay. And, no one ever sees it again.
Yeah, the Smithsonian
Go to your local university and say, I want to see your collection of skeletons you've taken from mounds. Good luck on that.
Yeah, they've got enough skeletons in their closet.
Literally, they do.
Well,
but there will be something that'll surface.
Well, I hope so. The people would say, people listening to this might say, well, that's, you would need to remove that in order to finally bring evidence forward to change this paradigm. But, I understand where you're at, where it's kind of past that point.
Right. And even if you did, I guarantee if you dug a hole in your backyard and found an 8-foot human skeleton, they're going to tell you it's a fake.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
I wonder.
The government's going to tell you that. The universities are going to tell you that. And they may arrest you for just digging it up in the first place. But it will be a hoax. Even though it's real, it will be reported as a hoax. And since people believe what's in the newspaper, people believe the universities, and people believe the media, it'll die right there.
So are they still turning up today? Is there the odd case here and there that turns up on the internet? Like, do you you must keep an eye out for that sort of thing?
Yeah, it would be tough. People are. If you did that, you would be under some grief to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I think people are a little scared of that. And, we just we're not digging the mounds up like we used to. It used to be people would go to church and they would dig into a mound after the services. There were so many of them. There was 10,000 mounds in Ohio. Now there's 100. So, what are the odds of us finding something, starting with a base of 10,000? Now we're down to 100. Just a fraction of that. So, a lot of it's gone.
So, speaking of people believing the media and what they read in the newspaper and all that, I think that's changing. I think people are seeing through the lies a bit, and they're. What's your thought now that your book's been out? You spent over a decade doing all this research. In the last, I seem to ask this all the time for our guests. But do you see it shifting or changing over the last, 2 to 5 years or even 10 years?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm seeing more people writing books on my topic, so I'm thinking people. So I don't know. There must be some interest out there because there's probably been about 10 books. They're about Nephilim. There's different books about giants and that. I don't think they have it in what I have, but I'm just seeing the topic seems to be getting more popular.
Yeah, I think alternative media and just things like this where we can have conversations and without anyone really controlling
it.
Is helping to spread the word a little bit and getting people interested, it seems.
Yeah, and I've gotten good feedback from the book just because of the line that I took that it's not just a list of giants. It's 20 chapters of different things that we can take across the globe. It's like, well, this is the same etymology, numerology, symbolism, material culture. So there's a lot of aspects that are, brought into the fold for the argument to say, we're talking about the same people here. And so you're left with yes, there was a people that did migrate across the world. These two different, migrations with the Maritime Archaic and then the later Beaker people. So I say it's spiritual, it's biblical, but it's a scientific aspect of it.
Where does numerology fit into it all?
Well, that is one of my greatest finds, and this is based. We'll go back to the Amorites, and I was talking about the math and that they developed. Well, they developed this numerology codex called Gematria, which basically means earth measures, and the two most basic numbers was 666, what represented the sun, and 1080 represented the lunar or earth mother. Both of them kind of being combined into one. And we'd go to the Stonehenge and some earthworks in England, and we can tell that they were built using that numerical codex because 666 and 1080 shows up in the measurements, but very predominant in the Ohio Valley. So we have these hinges that are either 660 or 666 feet in circumference, and yes, they have the foot. Shows up at Stonehenge, it shows up here. I won't get into that argument, but it did exist. So we have all these hinges that are 660 or 666, and then we have the squares, and a square or the number 4 has always been associated with the Earth Mother. Squares where each side is 1,080 foot on each side. And that can't be by chance.
They're trying to make an HD TV.
Yeah, it just happened to show up there like that. Now we have some. Now this is was the kicker is that there's measurements in a few hinges that were 555 feet in circumference. And if you take 555.5 and you stretch pi out way out, you take 555 times pi and you get I'm forgetting my number here, not the 2160, but you get the sum total of 666 plus 1080.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And 555 represented the yin yang. You could call the equal balance, which is what their religion was based on. So you didn't want too much earth because of floods and this and that. You didn't want too much sun because it would scorch all the crops, etc. So you always looked to have that balance. So 555 represented that. That's why the Washington Monument is 555 feet high. 555 times 12 is something like 6,666. So it kind of wraps around itself. But yeah, 555 was that equality number. Now, we also know that because earthworks in Ohio, there's some earthworks where there's a circle attached to a square. Now, the circle, I mean, just imagine the size. The circles were 1,050 feet in diameter, so very large. But the circle and the square were of equal areas. Well, to be able to do a circle and a square with equal areas, you had to know how to square a circle. And that's complicated. That's complicated mathematics to do that. But that meaning is that the sun and the earth were equal. And so we would definitely get in a lot of the religion and what all the earthworks meant and what the symbolism was behind it. So when you go and you use my travel guide to go see all this stuff, you really get a good aspect of the sacred landscape, what to look for, what was important, why was this built here opposed to somewhere else. If you see a circle and square, to know, what that meant religiously, and the numerology behind it of why was this at this length? Why was this at this length? Well, that's what the number means in that. Now, 666 is in the Bible, and people go like, oh, yeah, well, that's the devil. Well, it shows up 2 other places. In Chronicles, they bring Solomon 666 talents of gold. They say 666, but that's 666 talents of gold. Well, how do we know they're talking about the sun? Well, if we look at the name Solomon, it's Sol, which is Latin for sun, which is Hindi for sun, and is Egyptian for sun. Solomon means sun, sun, sun. And if we take the O, which is the 15th letter in the alphabet, we go 15, 15, 15, which is probably an anagram of 1 plus 5, 1 plus 5, 1 plus 5. Solomon is 666. Solomon built a temple, and there was room on the outside so the sun worshipers could worship the sun coming up from the east.
Okay, you're almost... Keep going.
So in the Bible, that's what it is. On the other thing, just one more thing is down from the Revelations, it says 144,000 people will be saved. If you divide that 144,000 by 666, you get 216.216 to infinity. 216. Well, what's the importance of that? Well, 216 is important because it's a sum total of 6 times 6 times 6. 2160, so 2160. 2160 is 1080 doubled. 2160. They were even using those numbers in that Revelations quote.
Wow. Okay, so is this all in your book?
Yeah. So how the biblical numerology matches up with what we find in Stonehenge and the mounds in the Ohio Valley is all there, and that's the kicker. In Genesis 11:11, there's a clue. 11:11. It says, and now the world had one language. Well, that one language was Gematria. That was the language. That numerical codex wasn't speech. It was those numbers. So they could speak to anyone, and everyone would know what a 666 and a 1080 meant, and a circle and what a square meant. That was the language that spread across the world.
That's fascinating. Huh. I must have missed. I didn't realize you had so much in with the audiobook when I listened to it. I must have missed that part or something. But yeah, I have to go back to that. It's kind of hard to ignore when there's so many similarities there.
That's easier to look at than to hear, I think.
Yeah, totally.
My head's kind of fucking doing loops right now.
Well, in the Sumerian icons, a circle with a dot meant the sun. It also meant number 1. A square meant the earth mother. Go to the Ohio Valley, you have a circle and a square. It means the same thing. Well, how do we know that? Well, the circle is a 660 or 666. The square is a 1080. So the numerology matches the symbolism. The symbolism matches the function. It all goes together, and it's not by chance.
So what are you continuing on trying to follow up with this symbolism and this numerology at all, or did you kind of stop at the end of the book there?
No, I've got about another 200 giant skeletons that I'm considering making a supplement. So it's going to be volume 3. So I'm kind of collecting those, but I have over 300 in the book. I think I got 250 new ones that I'm kind of typing away at, I type at about 15, 20 words a minute if the wind's behind me. And so I'm plugging those out, finding them. But that's been, the last couple of years I've been trying to get all of these new accounts, and then I think I'll put a supplement. So that's going to take us up to about 500 accounts.
You just got to get Siri to type it all out for you. See, it'd be interesting to see what came out at the end of that.
Of who? Type it?
Siri? Oh, it's just like on iPhones. It's the little...
It's a computerized voice that answers questions for you and stuff like that. So you could dictate, talk into it and let it type for you kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Save you from typing.
But it doesn't do a very good job.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, because there's some new mound sites and stuff, and I'm thinking well, maybe in the spring I'll go to the smartphone. Right now I have a dumb phone. I don't have a clock on it, which I find handy, but I really don't need an app to tell me where a Chinese restaurant is. So, and
you need a mound app, so when you're driving through, you can see where the nearest mound is.
Well, I've considered that, but there's so many out there, and the travel guide has 222. I have 85 in Indiana. If you go online, you're going to find 3, and I have 85 in directions to them. And also in Ohio, in the Mound Guide, if you went online, or there's another book that's a travel guide to the mounds, they have 70 total, and I have 222. And I took all of the burial mounds and earthworks that the Ohio Historical Society listed as address restricted. Now keep in mind, address restricted is from you.
Yeah.
They don't want you to find out about it. Well, I got all those, and I gave directions on how to get them, and photographs. There's photographs of every site, so you know what you're looking for. But everything that was address restricted, that has been lifted. So everything is now available.
Is that like a freedom of information process?
Or just in my world, it is.
Just your own hardcore research, really, right?
I just didn't believe that address restricted, and I knew they were restricting it from. I knew they were restricting it not for. So archaeologists could find out where a mound was, but if you're Joe Blow in whatever county, Ohio, and you ask about mounds, somebody'd say, well, I don't know where they are. But in the book, there might be something that's 40 foot in this 40-foot cone of earth that's visible from the road. So it's like, yeah, this is American history. American history belongs to anybody who wants to see it. So, yeah, let's just say I gave the Freedom of Information Act on that. I'm probably not going to get
version.
I'm probably off the Ohio Historical Society Christmas card list. But
so is there anything up here where we are?
To preserve them. That is to preserve them. I think people know about them, that they have a better chance of being preserved.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Is there anything up here across the border? We're in Calgary. Is there anything that you know of in Canada there? Well, I'm sure there is, but
There are giants in Canada. Yes, there are a few. They're mainly around the St. Lawrence, where you'd expect to find them, because the commerce of coming through the Great Lakes and the copper trade. So more of the Montreal, Toronto kind of that. Okay. Not so far out west. But however, I think there is something out there somewhere. But like I said, they're in almost every 50 states. 1 year, 1 there. But you get into Ohio, and there's 150 accounts of them finding them. So really the books are talking about the Ohio Valley. The other ones I kind of noted probably as being more of the maritime archaic. So they're all in there, but it just depends on where in the story they fall.
Yeah. So what do you plan on doing in the near future here besides your addendum there, your third book? Anything else?
Some YouTube videos. I'm hoping to do some aerial photography with a GoPro and a quadcopter. Maybe doing some aerials over the earthworks, of getting more shots of the actual solstices at the earthworks, which might take a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
To see the gateways with the sun either setting or rising, depending on what they did when they built it. So, more specifics, being able to spend more time at sites. When I was doing the guide, I may have like 10 sites I want to hit in one day. So it was go get photographs. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot of time for exploration.
Yeah.
So, to get more details possibly at some of the sites, and then, just to keep promoting that this does exist.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that shot. The solstice sunset shot, and I missed it.
Yeah.
Shit. Better luck next year.
Yeah, well, that's just it. You don't get it, then you're coming back. Well, the equinox was nice. You can just come back in 6 months, but the summer and winter, that's a little more. But yeah, you have a couple of days where you could probably get a good shot of the alignment. So try to get a little bit more of that and really show people that, you have this ancient civilization that's, so multi-layered with ties to the Bible and ties to Stonehenge and mathematics and geometry and a race of giants and all this stuff that's involved. And you can just go to Ohio and see it. You don't have to go to Europe. You don't have to go to Egypt. Who wants to go to Egypt anyway? But you have this fascinating thing right here in North America that can be viewed.
No, that is true. It is opening up, and it's nice to hear these accounts and from people like yourself that North America, it has more history than we think, right? It's only like 300 or 400 years. Everybody thinks it's so new. So that's good. So where can people get your books then, Fritz?
Well, it's available. You can go to Barnes & Noble. They'll order it for you. I would suggest not to. But I would just order it from Amazon because they have some nice reductions and free shipping. I think if you buy Volume 1, Volume 2, shipping is free. We got about a $10 discount on the book right now. So they got a really good price on it. But Amazon's the best and makes for a great Christmas gift since we're coming into that season.
Good point.
Yeah, and as always, Grimericans, always go through the Grimerica Amazon portal before you buy Fritz's book so that we can get our little slice of heaven, too.
Oh, well, I didn't know that existed, but sure.
It's not really a portal. It's just a button that you click on, but it helps. It helps us.
Portal.
So, what about contacting you through? Do you have Facebook, Twitter, anything like that?
Yeah, Fritz Zimmerman. I'm on Facebook. I have the Nephilim Chronicles page on Facebook where I usually post a giant skeleton or two about every day, just for ongoing fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
When you're sitting at your desk and don't feel like working, you can read the Giants account. And so, yeah, I'm pretty prevalent. I have Giant Human Skeletons blog spot, Nephilim Chronicles blog spot. I put stuff on there. And so generally, if you look up giant skeletons on the internet, you're probably going to hit one of my blogs or one of my pages. But I don't put it all in there because really the fascinating thing is the why and the how, not just reading the giant skeletons. It's the backstory. It's the symbolism and the history and where they came from, and that's all the really good juicy stuff. So I post, the giant accounts on there, but the really good stuff is in the book. Kind of planned it that way because I don't give it all away, but all in all, the good stuff is in the book about all the information and details.
Yeah, it's definitely loaded full of accounts. That's for sure. I can attest to it. I listened to the thing on audio again. So, Fritz, we want to really thank you for coming on the Grimerica show. Hopefully, we can have you back maybe after your third book comes out.
Yeah, and of course.
Yeah, maybe by this spring I may have that Volume 3 out. So it's going to be a nice supplement because there have been a lot of real interesting finds, and all the photos I have of some mummies, mummified remains. I have some mummified remains of a 9-footer that I found, and those are fascinating. And they have a guy from the Smithsonian standing next to it. And the Smithsonian said that photo was a fake, that it was made out of Jell-O, I think is what they said, but they bought it anyway. Interesting. They bought Jell-O Man. They bought 9-foot Jell-O Man and hauled him back to the Smithsonian, even though they said, yeah, we're buying him, but he's just made out of Jell-O. I didn't even know they had Jell-O in 1910 or 15, whatever this account came from. But it's, some more good stuff will be coming down the road.
That was our talk with Fritz Zimmerman.
Fritz Zimmerman.
That's what I said.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good one.
The Nephilim Chronicles. So you didn't really know much about these giants and stuff. So what did you think after that?
It was pretty interesting. Well, I definitely didn't know anything about the North American aspect of it. Like we had Scotty Roberts on, and we talked about the Nephilim quite a bit, and giants and stuff like that we touched on. But it was always in the biblical sense and over, in Europe and Jerusalem and places like that, never in Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. And so prevalent too, right? And the copper mining and all these fascinating things. Yeah, pretty crazy.
I think they'll find all that copper when they find the labyrinth. The walls will be coated in it, Ohioan fucking copper.
The labyrinth?
Yeah, the labyrinths in Egypt.
No, I don't know.
The fucking labyrinth, dude. Ugh. Anyway.
Who wants to go to Egypt?
I'd like to go to Egypt. Who wants to go to Egypt? No, I'd like to go to Egypt for sure. I'd definitely like to behold the pyramids and stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe one of these years I'll go on the Exodus tour.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth it. You can go.
Have you been?
I spent a month at least in Egypt, so.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about the Exodus tour.
Oh, no. But I did want to say I made a couple of mistakes on previous shows talking about Fritz Zimmerman on Audible. I thought he had 4 audiobooks. 3 of those are actually radio TV programs. So there's like Ancient Aliens, Nephilim in North America, Giants Once Roamed the Earth, and Ohio Earthworks, The Great Circle. So, yeah, not exactly audiobooks, but still there on Audible for you to check out.
Yep, and that's, as always, audibletrial.com/Grimerica. And you get it for free.
Get what for free?
You get the audiobook
for
free.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Hey, Audible's great. I got 2 credits available, and I have to choose what books I have. So every month I get these free credits. It's crazy. So hopefully this whole Giants thing will open up a little bit, and we can have Fritz back on after his 3rd book comes out. I mean, can you imagine 500 accounts of these Giants' bones?
Yeah, there's probably more than that. I'd like to see one just fucking turn up today, and that'd be like all over YouTube.
Wouldn't you like to just bust into the Smithsonian one day and go down, deep down into their layers?
Let's do it.
See all these Giants' bones.
Let's fucking do it. No, just
rooms,
kidding. Disclaimer, we're not breaking into the Smithsonian.
All tagged and 9 foot here, 9.5 foot there.
9-footers, 10-footers. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Again, big thanks to Fritz for coming on. And who's next?
David Weatherly.
David Weatherly will be our last interview before Christmas. The timing might work out that we don't even really miss a beat, because we're actually getting to the point where we've got a pretty healthy thing going on. We're not scrambling around every week trying to get an episode. We're starting to have a good system going. So the episode should come right through Christmas. It might go 2 weeks without one when we go into January. But stick with it. And thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
As always, everything will be in the show notes. The music you heard and everything Fritz talked about, all his websites, his Twitter, his Facebook, all that will be in the show notes. All the music. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
Email Graham@Grimerica.com.